Hello and welcome to Work 2.0, the podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Wells, and today in this episode, we are going to be going through another weekly briefing on the future of work, careers, money, and AI. Today, I'm delighted to have with me a special guest, another freelancer from Fiverr who has made over 1 million, if I'm not mistaken, from his business, from his skill set, and he's here to share with you his story and how he made it to the top. Welcome, Harlan.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Appreciate the introduction, and thanks for having me.
You're absolutely welcome. So I know our listeners are definitely they're global, they're worldwide, and we know that everyone has some sort of skill that they can monetize and use it and make something from apart from their job. And obviously, right now we're having this year unprecedented layoffs. February 2025 saw the most layoffs since the pandemic alone, which is crazy to think about in 1 month. So we had recent news of more layoffs and with Microsoft and everything. Can you walk us through how you started your business right now, what your business is? Because I think everyone really would like to know, like, how you made it to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. So for some context, I do a lot of freelance email marketing on Fiverr. And I do wish I had like some elaborate story with a really cool business plan and how it was all planned out and inspired. But a lot of it was just like luck and timing and a lot of randomness. Going back probably almost like 7, 8 years ago now, I was working for my neighbor who ran a tattoo supply company out of his basement.
Wow.
And
Okay.
he pretty much knocked on our door and said, I need an extra hand. Like I'm running out of hands. And so I volunteered to help him out. And so it was him and me and my brother in his basement, packing orders, doing whatever he needed. And I was always pretty like computer savvy and like to, mess around on the internet and on socials. And I told him that one day and he was like, oh, maybe you'll figure out my email marketing. And so I was like, sure, I'd give it a shot. And I really just kind of started playing around, watching YouTube videos, reading articles, and just like figuring stuff out for his business over like a summer between like college. And like it actually ended up working and I had a lot of fun with it.
Wow.
And I was just like figuring out stuff as I went. But we had some success. And at a certain point, I was like, okay, like if I can figure this out for this like tattoo supply business, which at the time I thought was like the weirdest niche in the world, I was like, I can probably do this for other businesses.
Right. That's
And so
extremely niche.
yes, very huge industry though. It's fascinating, and the people are amazing in that
Wow.
space. But yeah, so I figured like if I can do this for a tattoo company, I could probably do this for any company. And so I threw up a Fiverr gig, and then I left it alone for like 5 years. I went back to college, totally forgot about it, and then COVID happened, and I was like sitting at home with all this free time, and I was like, oh, like maybe I'll like try to make some beer money. And so I vividly remember like clicking reactivate on the gig and just kind of like let it sit there.
Yeah.
And that's really how like 0 to 1 how this started. So
Wow.
none of it was really planned. It was all like kind of out of boredom and like something I did years before. But I just turned it on and kind of ran with it from there.
I can totally relate. When I started freelancing, when I started my coaching business, I started actually in 2019 using a gig platform, not Fiverr, but it was another one. And I just put out the ad, not expecting anything. And then my first client ended up being a police officer. And then it snowballed from there. I got 5-star reviews, and and I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. So it's amazing
Yep,
what happens when you just take advantage of opportunities that appear before you. You just never know where it could lead to.
100%.
I'm sure back then
Yep.
you didn't realize you'd be a millionaire years later.
No, absolutely not. I
So
call it
what were you?
like dart.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Oh, I was gonna say like I call it like dart throwing. Like I don't know
Yeah.
what's gonna work, but just throw a bunch of darts and hope it sticks.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly. What would you say? Like, obviously, email marketing, which is part of digital marketing, is a huge industry. It's one of the top high income in demand skills. We know that. And especially as more and more people resort to using online for almost every aspect of their lives, that's a huge industry, I know. And we know it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Tell me, for someone who wants to get into email marketing as a business or develop the email marketing skills, what would you say are the top 3 skills that made you successful, that really made it click with your neighbor's tattoo supply business?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. I think like I'll caveat that like I truly do think that like anyone can really perform well in almost any niche within digital marketing and including email marketing. Like I don't think you need to be exceptionally talented in one area or another to succeed. Like I mean, when I went into it, I like didn't know anything about copywriting. I didn't know anything about strategy. I didn't know anything about design. And and like that was okay because
Mm,
like I think the actual indicators of success are like one like how fast are you willing to move and like how much are you willing to hustle so
right,
like
right.
can you stay on top of trends like can you come up with new ideas and then like ideas are great but how quickly can you put those into action and like
Right.
implement them and see results so I think just like speed of execution and like putting things out into the world
Mm,
which is like super general quality like you can crush it both in email and like pretty much anything in the digital marketing sphere. Second is like, and I learned this pretty quickly early on when I started working with other clients. It's just like over communicating and really getting an understanding of the brands you're working with and the clients you're working with, like what they're envisioning, what they want, and then ultimately like what results they want to achieve, and
mm,
working around that. Um, with also like the note that like you can communicate clearly if you like disagree with something and
yeah.
um, if a client wants an end result and you know a better way to get there, speaking up, like making it clear, like this is what I'm going to work on. I know we discussed, XYZ,
Well, they're paying
but
you as the professional, so yeah.
right, yeah, although you'd be surprised, some people will think that they know
The
better, but
ego, yeah.
yeah, yeah. But generally, I just think over communicating, being crystal clear about what you're doing and why. Just generally avoids conflict and people will want to work with you. And then I
Mm,
guess the last more general quality would be a willingness to learn, right? Like as you know, I'm sure like the space moves so fast, and things change. And again, like I came into email not knowing anything, right? And like I remember watching all those YouTube videos like 8 years ago and reading all the articles and trying and failing.
yeah.
And I just kept doing it. And then eventually you kind of like take a step back and you're like, oh, like I'm actually kind of good at this stuff now.
Wow. Yeah.
It wasn't like, I studied and then I said, I'll put this all into action. Like I kind of
Yeah.
just like gave it a shot, failed, iterated. And then like a couple years later, you look up and you're like, oh, I actually know all this.
You've actually made some progress. And speaking of learning on the go, I know obviously when you started there was no AI. Well, there was AI, but not how it is today. How do you feel like? I know some people are saying we can replace entire marketing teams with AI. Do you feel that AI could completely replace you in the future? And do you feel that like how have you incorporated AI into your work as an AI skills?
Yeah, yeah. It's a good question. I do always think that there will be a need for like a conductor, right? And like the freelancer or the email marketer for inside an organization is going to always be needed and always be that conductor. And
Right.
whether he or she is operating under a team or under a team of people or like a team of agents, like someone is going to need to dictate strategy and what is ultimately good and bad and right or wrong.
Mm,
Um, I don't know what the this AI space is going to look like in 5, 10 years. It's probably going to be pretty damn good and can, you know, do a lot of the things that I'm doing manually now.
right.
But like from a strategy and like pure like vision standpoint, like I don't think we're going to get there for quite some time.
Cool.
But yeah, it's been an immense help. Even like over the last 12 months. I mean, I was kind of diving right into it as soon as like GPT came out and all these like
Mm,
side tools. And back then it was like, this is cool, but I can't actually put this into production. But today, like almost every aspect of my workflow is like AI assisted, whether it's generating assets or creatives or writing copy, or even some like high level implementation work. Almost everything touches AI touches almost everything in my workflow right now.
did you find that you were able to cross the $1 million mark because of AI, or was that before you started using AI?
I think like I was well on the trajectory before the use of AI.
Okay.
I don't think that had a direct impact. I think it did like increase the speed of output, which allowed me to
Right.
take on more work.
Of
And
course.
because of that, it probably sped up the process.
But you're already on
Um,
your way.
yes, I
Sure,
would say
sure.
so.
So how long did it take for you to, I know you mentioned part of your story that you started making $5,000 monthly. How long did it take for you to achieve that level of success?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the answer is probably like 8 months before I
That's
started
really
earning like
good.
$5,000 consistently.
Wow.
I remember it like the first month it was like $5. The second month it was like 70. The third it might have been 1,000. And then it kind of hovered around that like 1 to 4,000 range on any given month. And I thought that was like the best of the best. Like I'm not getting better than that. Like this is my beer money and like it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
And I ended up meeting with some other freelancers on Fiverr and people from Fiverr directly as well on their like success coaching team. And they kind of just like made me aware of what was possible on the platform and then provided some suggestions on like how to improve my listings, how to improve my service, how do I improve communication. And like over a couple months, like implemented those suggestions and then like instantly pretty much 2, 3, 4x from there over the
Wow.
following years. So I certainly don't owe it to myself for getting to that, 5,000 monthly
Wow.
checkpoint. But yes, that was, I think that was about 8 months into making, the account and the gig.
Could you share with our listeners that what's one of the steps that you took to take you to that level? Like one of the things that you were able to implement during that time period?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of it was centered on like ranking within some of these freelance platform algorithms, because
Mm,
ultimately they are algorithms. Like people describe what they need, or I guess now they describe it to an AI assistant. But back then, people searched for what they needed, and the algorithm was responsible for like showing you what you needed.
mm,
And so it's super important to feed the search engines the right information to be able to show up as much as possible. And
right.
so, like, there were things that I wasn't doing, like, putting the proper words in my images, like tagging my images with metadata, like highly technical things that I didn't know anything about
Wow.
that people, directly at Fiverr were able to help me with. And it was like truly like an instant um, improvement in like traffic and ultimately revenue.
And I think really what people could take away from that, because not everyone obviously is a freelancer on Fiverr, but it's a principle of a lot of things online are controlled by algorithms. LinkedIn, just social media, Google, and now Google's AI overview, which is changing SEO to, AI assisted search and things like that. So I think it's really a matter of people understanding if they really want to scale, learning the rules of the algorithm and how to trick it to make it work for you, right? Because
Yeah.
that's what made you ultimately successful. So you could crack that income ceiling. I think that that's so important. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now, you turned going back to the tattoo supply business. You were able to turn that tattoo supply business or that side hustle ultimately into a seven-figure business. Now you've crossed 1 million. What's something about being successful at this level, making seven figures, that you don't find a lot of people talk about publicly?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think like the work I was doing when I first started out, even the first 2, 3 years of starting out, compared to the work I'm doing now is like super super different. Once you get to a certain level, you might have to hire people and have a team around you, and you know, anytime you add people, you tend to like complicate things, right? But also, it's also freed up a bunch of my time,
Mm,
and so the work I'm doing has changed quite a bit. In that, a couple years ago, I would just wake up, sit at my desk for 12 hours, and crank away and operate the business. And now that I have a team around me to help, the work is like, okay, like I wake up and I'm like, okay, is everyone happy? What can I do to make them happy? And like, are we on the right track? And those are
wow.
like two very different jobs.
Mm,
And I would say like I was a lot more comfortable in the first job in terms of just like sitting on a computer and typing away. That
Right.
was very comfortable for me. Uh, and managing a team, which is something that I hadn't done before and wasn't super experienced with.
Yeah.
I
So now
found,
you wake up to you're in this world of it can be a shock, right? Waking up to, oh, now I've got to be a CEO, not just a solopreneur. I'm actually managing a team. What what's the mindset shift that you need to get from being an individual contributor or freelancer to actually running an actual business that has a team?
yeah, I think it's actually quite significant. Like it's less about like minute problems and solving those problems than more like, okay, like what are the next, three huge things that I can do to make my team's life easier, my clients' lives easier, and then ultimately my life easier. I think like
Mm,
um, when I ask like the question to myself, like, you know, what do I need to do to make like the my clients and team happy? Like generally that results in like good things for me. Um, and
mm.
so it's very different than like, optimizing a flow on an email platform.
Yeah.
Uh, but still very difficult.
Yeah, yeah. And are you so with your team, are you still doing some of the work with them? So, or are you completely delegating everything out?
I would say I'm still involved to I would say probably like 25% of fulfillment work is
Okay.
still me.
Right.
Most of that is a function of like I enjoy it and I want to keep doing it and want to stay on top
Right.
of things.
Of
I think if
course.
I woke up tomorrow and said I don't want to touch it anymore, like I could get away with that. And
Wow.
the team around me is amazing, and I have full confidence that they would crush it. Um, but like I enjoy it. Like I still like to be in it. I still like to stay on top of things and make sure stuff doesn't like slip by. And so I'm still involved.
Awesome. Awesome. And you mentioned something really critical about how you have full confidence in your team that they have the expertise needed to get on with it, even if you was completely take a step back. How did you find such valued team members, like people who have the same expertise that you have? How did you find them?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I will say I didn't always make it on the first try. Like there have been some rough stretches, but I
Yeah.
think it's just like repetitions. Like um, as you hire and fire and rehire, like you learn what's needed and you know how you work and the type of person that you like to work with and the type of
Mm,
person you need for this role. And like with freelancing, I've learned that like, okay, I need someone who is like super high EQ, can communicate really well with clients,
yeah.
but they also have to, be super technical and like be able to dig into data. And those things don't always like go super well together. And so like
Yeah.
at a certain point, like I tried to hire one person for both of those skill sets, and at a certain point, I was like, okay, like this is two separate people. Like we're gonna hire two people,
Oh.
and like figuring that
Wow.
out took me like a year.
Wow. Trial and error. Like just out
Yeah,
of
so
curiosity, when because I interviewed someone else and who's a freelancer and they started hiring and they hired their team or their team member based on a freelance kind of contract. Is that what you're doing, or are you hiring them as employees?
so I hire a lot overseas, right? So I hire a lot out of the Philippines and Latin America, and they're phenomenal to work with. And they effectively work, 40-hour weeks full
Mhm.
time, and are incredible. You know, they do great work. They don't work for other clients, like they're not freelance,
I see.
um,
Got it.
and so it allows them to be like super embedded in the
Yes.
business.
Excellent. That's amazing. That's amazing. So, what would your advice be to young professionals who they're working their regular corporate job and they are stuck because they're considering, they have this side hustle and they want to push it to pursuing it full time? They're not sure if it's the right time to take that risk yet, to actually go full time and hand in their notice. What would you tell them?
Yeah. Oh man, like I would say I probably was not the best living, breathing example. Like probably should have quit my job like 3 years before
Hmm.
I did. But I think like one, you need to make sure you're financially secure, um, like first and foremost, because I think like if you're not, it doesn't matter like what you're working on or how amazing it is. Like for me personally, I would have found that like the stress of like, not knowing if money's coming in or, what next month is going to look like would have been super challenging. I would have taken away from my focus. So that was like
Right.
my first baseline.
Mm.
And once I had that, it was more just like, okay, is this real? And it took me like a solid 2 years to kind of come to the conclusion that it was real. Like I didn't like, it sounds really dumb when you say it out loud. But like, I just like couldn't fathom that like you could just like make money online and like people would keep coming to you, and I kept waiting for people to stop coming and they just didn't, and I was
Yeah.
like,
Is that fair? Yeah.
yeah. So that took me like 2 years of just like verification almost. And
Right.
at a certain point, we were growing, fast enough, and large enough to the point where I was like, I surpassed the income from my job and had done it for an extended period of time. And
Well,
I said, okay, I think we're good here. And I left. But it's
right.
such a hard decision.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Because even once you've made that level of income, there's always that fear of if I hand in my notice, what if the income dips all of a sudden?
Right,
You know?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
And
want that
so,
security.
yeah, um, it was a lot of waiting for that dip.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But it didn't happen, thankfully. So that's good. I think my last question for you is, there's some experts who say email marketing is dead, right? And obviously you're living proof that it's not. What do you think is one of the fundamental things that people misunderstand about email marketing? Why are they saying it's dead?
Yeah. I mean, I think like with like all of these social apps now and like people spending their time across, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter,
Mm,
LinkedIn, like their time is just a lot more spread, and like they're so much more engaged in those platforms than they are with email, which they might check, 3 to 5 times a day.
right.
But it's still something they check 3 to 5 times a day, right? Like I personally check it, 100 times a day. Like I
Same
live
here.
in my
Yeah.
inbox, yeah. Um, and like 3 to 5 seemed on the low end to me. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like it's one, it's something that you own, right? So like
Mm,
if you're a brand advertising on Google, on Meta, um, like that could get cut off tomorrow by something totally outside your control. And there's nothing you could do about it, right? But
mm.
with email, you own your list, right? And so you have full control over
Yes.
it, and you can reach out to your customers, or prospects, or and market to them, whenever, however, and that's effectively never going to change, providing people still use email. And I think there's just tons of value in that. And then on top of that, like I think attribution in general is pretty hard, right? Like brands are advertising across Google, across Meta. They're posting on LinkedIn. The
Mm,
founders writing articles, and you're sending emails. And like
mm.
if it takes 20 touch points for someone to make their first purchase with your brand, like who knows which touch point was like the trigger, right? And so
Right.
like
Yeah.
you know there's a lot of data that shows that like email is a very important touch point. And so like if you were to cut that off, um, you know, I would bet that you would see some like dramatic decrease, in performance. And so like
Mm,
better to do everything and keep doing everything. Um,
right.
yeah.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise on this podcast and your experience, your story of how you got to where you are now in business. If anyone is interested in maybe working with you for email marketing services, how could they get in touch?
Yeah, they can add me on LinkedIn at Harlan Rappaport. You can find me on Twitter at the Fiverr guy if you want some Fiverr related content.
Cool.
Yeah, or send me an email.
Right. Well, brilliant. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Work 2.0, the podcast. Please do feel free to give this a rating, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, share your thoughts, and which one of Harlan's tips really resonated with you, which part of his story really resonated with you the most. And don't forget to share this with your friends, with your coworkers, and tune in for the next episode. You can follow us across all podcast platforms, on Apple, on Spotify, on YouTube podcasts, you name it. Definitely tune in and stay ready and prepared for the future of work instead of being anxious about what's going to happen to you. The guests that we have on this podcast, as you've heard so far, have lots of insights and advice so that you don't need to be anxious anymore, but you can feel ready and prepared for what's next. All right. So I will see you in the next episode.